Chinese University associate professor sentenced to life in prison after being found guilty of murdering his wife and daughter. Kim Jong-un conditionally agrees to dismantle a key nuclear complex at an inter-Korean summit and says he'll visit Seoul in the near future. And China's premier appealed to the international community to keep up its support for free trade.
Welcome to TVB News. The verdict's out in the Yoga Ball murder trial. A High Court jury deemed a Chinese University associate professor guilty of poisoning his wife and second daughter with carbon monoxide. The academic was sentenced to life in prison. 3 other children of Ko Kim-sung were at the courthouse today. The father is accused of killing their sister and mother 3 years ago. The pair were found unconscious in a car. For weeks, prosecutors presented a murder plot where the anesthesia specialist allegedly killed by leaking carbon monoxide from a yoga ball which he placed in his wife's vehicle. A police officer who earlier testified said Ko had told him upon his arrest that his second daughter Letty was the only family member who knew about the gas and she might have wanted to commit suicide because of stress. Before the jury retired for deliberation, the judge gave them directions and questions to consider. Justice Judy Anna Barnes said no one knows when the yoga ball was placed in the trunk of the car. The defendant and his second daughter Lily, who died in the case, were the only people who knew the yoga ball was inflated with carbon monoxide. While there's no evidence to show Lily was suicidal, could it be she wasn't listening carefully when told about the poisonous gas in the exercise ball? The judge said if jurors are convinced Ko Kim-sung put the yoga ball in the trunk of the car to kill his wife, he should also be deemed guilty of murdering his daughter even if he didn't plan to. After about 8 hours, the jury returned unanimous guilty verdicts for both murder charges. In sentencing, the judge said the jury did not buy the defendant's excuse of using carbon monoxide for an experiment. She was also stunned that a highly qualified, smart and successful man would resort to this method to kill his wife.
Overseas now, South Korean President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un announced a set of agreements after a second day of talks in Pyongyang. They included a promise by Kim to permanently dismantle the North's main nuclear complex if the US takes reciprocal action. But he didn't specify what that action should be. Alan Buckner reports.
Following a closed-door meeting this morning, Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in declared they had made a major step forward towards peace on the Korean peninsula.
수십 년 세월 지속되어온
Kim said the leaders agreed to make the Korean peninsula a land of peace without nuclear weapons and threats.
북녘 동포 여러분, 남녘의 국민 여러분.
According to the South Korean president, the North would allow international inspectors to monitor the closing of a key missile test site and launch pad. Moon said the North also expressed its readiness to take additional measures, such as a permanent dismantlement of its main nuclear facilities in Yongbyon, should there be corresponding measures from the U.S. Earlier, the two leaders smiled and chatted as they walked down the hallway towards the meeting room. A joint statement caps off the third summit between Kim and Moon. Moon is under increasing pressure from Washington to find a path to get Kim to completely and unilaterally abandon his nuclear arsenal. While Trump called the pledges very exciting, they appear to fall short of the major steps Washington is looking for. That includes a list of the North's nuclear facilities and a solid step-by-step timeline for denuclearization. The U.S. has insisted that sanctions will remain in place until the North is completely denuclearized. The statements made no mention of a formal end to the Korean War. The fighting was halted in 1953 by an armistice. The two leaders also said they will make a joint bid to host the Summer Olympics in 2032 and actively work together in other international competitions, including the 2020 Olympic Games in Japan. Kim said he would visit Seoul in the near future. That would make him the first North Korean leader to visit the South's capital. Alan Buckner, TVB News.
Premier Li Keqiang has appealed to the international community to maintain its support for free trade in light of the growing trade dispute between China and the United States. A day after the US announced tariffs on $200 billion of Chinese goods, and China retaliated by slapping duties on $60 billion of American products, all eyes were on Premier Li Keqiang today as he addressed the World Economic Forum in Tianjin. While he made no direct mention of the trade spat with Washington, he said the world's international trading system should be upheld and that unilateral action will not solve any problem. The Premier also announced Beijing would not engage in competitive currency depreciation in response to the US move, while pledging to improve conditions for foreign companies wishing to enter the Chinese market and do business in China. But that seems unlikely to placate US President Donald Trump, who continues to insist on policies to reduce America's deficits with its main trading partners, including China.
We are the piggy bank to the world. We've been ripped off by China. We've been ripped off by everybody. And I want to protect the American worker, the American farmer, the ranchers, the companies.
The two countries have already imposed import taxes on $50 billion worth of each other's goods. Trump has threatened to add an additional $267 billion in duties on Chinese imports if China retaliates against US tariffs announced this week. That would raise the total affected by US penalties to $517 billion, covering nearly everything China sells to the United States. Beijing, meanwhile, appears to be trying to make its tariffs hurt Trump politically.
The one thing that I think Donald Trump brought up today, which was pretty interesting, is that China is making this more political. And what I mean by that is when they put tariffs on, and when they retaliate after he puts tariffs on, is that they're going after people that actually have voted for Donald Trump.
Despite jitters over the escalating Sino-US trade war, markets in Asia were largely unaffected, with the local Hang Seng, the Shanghai Composite, and the Tokyo Nikkei finishing in positive territory.
The woman who accuses US Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault says she wants her allegations to be investigated by the FBI. Christine Blasey Ford accuses Kavanaugh of trying to remove her clothing while he was drunk as a teenager at a party in 1982, something he denies. The development further roils a confirmation process that once seemed smooth for Kavanaugh, who maintains the backing of US President Donald Trump. Ford's been invited to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee next Monday. That could now be delayed. If she does testify, Democrats are warning there should not be a repeat of 1991, when Anita Hill accused nominee Clarence Thomas of sexual harassment.
I, along with millions of other women, watched in horror as an all-male Judiciary Committee interrogated, berated, and maligned a woman who was brave enough to speak up about an issue it would have been far easier for her personally to remain silent on. Some of them are still on this committee today. They called Anita Hill a liar.
They will look at what she had to say from 36 years ago, and we will see what happens. But I just think he is at a level that we rarely see, not only in government, anywhere in life. And honestly, I feel terribly for him, for his wife, who is an incredible, lovely woman, and for his beautiful young daughters. I feel terribly for them.
Russian President Vladimir Putin described the shooting down of a Russian aircraft by Syrian forces that killed all 15 people aboard, a chain of tragic accidental circumstances. Putin's comments appeared to somewhat diffuse a possible crisis involving Syria, Russia and Israel. Russia's defense ministry accused Israel of indirectly causing the incident. It said that while Syrian anti-aircraft fire had mistakenly shot down the plane, Israeli jets flying nearby put the Russian jet in the path of danger. Monday's incident triggered testy exchanges of blame between Israel and Russia.
And still to come on the news tonight. Students go back to school after 2 days of class suspension. Lantau taxis apply for a fare hike. And new self-service e-security gates at the airport.
Welcome to our lounge. Enjoy your stay.
Thanks very much.
Find calm in over 1,000 airport lounges worldwide. It's another way we've got your back. The Platinum Card from American Express. Don't live life without it.
Welcome to our lounge. Enjoy your stay.
Thanks very much.
Find calm in over 1,000 airport lounges worldwide. It's another way we've got your back. The Platinum Card from American Express. Don't live life without it.
Welcome back to TVB News. Experts say it is unacceptable that nearly 15,000 trees were knocked down when severe Typhoon Mangkhut hit on Sunday. Some of those felled trees continue to cause traffic delays around town. Meanwhile, schools resumed classes today while authorities work to salvage damaged vessels, including a stranded PLA naval ship. Christy Lung reports.
Even a 42-meter-long military vessel couldn't withstand the monster storm on Sunday. The Nanjiang 86, a Navy transport ship, remains stranded on Khao Yi Chau. Sources say when the typhoon hit the city on Sunday, the ship was docked at another location instead of at the naval base on Stone Curtis Island. But the waves were so big that it broke the anchor chain mooring the vessel. Authorities are also counting the cost in other ways. Mangkhut smashed down 14,700 trees, something which one expert says is unacceptable.
Because we have very rarely given adequate attention to the quality of soil as well as the volume of soil for tree growth. We think that any soil that can be moved by a spade is suitable for plant growth, and this is definitely impossible. And that is why we have many trees with very limited root system. And as a result, the tree cannot anchor itself adequately in the soil.
Going back to school was a difficult task when classes resumed this morning. Students at this school in Kowloon City had to walk along road lanes to another entrance, as the school's main entrance were blocked by toppled trees. This father found the arrangement potentially dangerous if the kids were not looked after by adults. At another school in Hong Kong, workers were still busy repairing the classroom. Around 10 schools remained shut today. Christy Lung, TVB News.
Many windows around town failed to stand the test of strong winds when severe Typhoon Mangkhut swept through the region a few days ago. Experts say a building's design could affect its wind resistance. Sharon Tang has more.
Curtain walls of commercial building 2 Harbourfront in Hong Kong were damaged during the typhoon, and many windows were blown out. The same happened 10 years ago when Typhoon Hagupit hit the city. Our reporters picked up some of the glass pieces on the street and took them to an expert for tests. Albert Lung's company performs wind and gravity tests for curtain walls before installation. Judging from the pieces that we collected, he says this is a 6 mm thick float glass. Though the material is no longer widely used nowadays, that doesn't mean it's unsafe to use.
The system definitely has been designed and approved by the building authority in that moment when they constructed, and would likely been also tested to the satisfaction of the window requirement.
In 2004, the Code of Practice on Wind Effects was established for building professionals' reference. Authorities noted that the wind speed stated in the Code of Practice is higher than that of Mangkhut, but it's the design and maintenance of the building that affect its wind resistance. Vincent Ho from the Hong Kong Institute of Surveyors says 2 Harbourfront is designed with sharp angles. When winds meet the structure, it may create a swirl-shaped turbulence, but the curtain walls may not be able to withstand the pressure. He suggests designers could try using better and stronger materials to avoid incidents like what happened in Hong Kong from happening again. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
The city's various taxis have all asked for a fare hike. The latest push comes from Lantau taxis. Flagfall is now $19 for the light blue coloured cabs. Cabbies want to increase that by $7, a hike of more than 36%. They also want fares to be 30 cents more for every 200 metres in the first 20 kilometres of a trip. After that, 10 cents more per jump. A taxi association said the suggestions are not unreasonable. That's because for cabbies on Lantau, fuel expenditure accounts for a greater part of their operating costs than their counterparts in urban areas.
Starting tomorrow, members of the public can try out 4 new e-security gates at the airport. Already in place at the South Departure Hall in Terminal 1, the system will share the workload of the current manual document checking system. The 20-second process includes scanning boarding passes and facial recognition. Passengers over 11 years old with valid electronic travel documents are eligible to use the new service. The airport authority has reassured that everyone will be properly screened.
If the system considers that there is a potential uncertainty on a certain confidence level, then it will prompt at the back end the security guard to manually take a look and decide. If any suspicious, can go there and ask the person.
Well, there's just a week left before a public consultation on land supply ends. If a LegCo panel meeting is anything to go by, there's still no consensus on how to boost land supply for development. Haley Joe with details.
Green groups also want a say on which plots should be developed and those better left untouched. The Worldwide Fund for Nature Hong Kong petitioned outside the Legislative Council this morning, voicing its opposition to land reclamation or building in country parks. Inside LegCo, a number of participants supported the idea of making use of idle agricultural land in the new territories.
Building an island in the middle of the sea, East Lantau metropolis, is going to suck up all the resources of government. So we have to make clear choices. And that choice should be to fix up the new territories. We have 10,000 hectares of underutilized land.
We have a lot of idle agricultural land. It's being hoarded by private developers. The government doesn't do anything. It protects the rich. The Fanling Golf Course should be included as one of the options.
Land scarcity wasn't the only issue discussed in the meeting, which lasted almost 9 hours. Some participants called for greater transparency on the parts of the government in communicating with the public.
Of the so-called 1,200 hectares shortage, only a small proportion of that is for public rental housing. The government said 720 will be for government, institutional and community use.
So a lot of that will not have anything to do with welfare facilities.
In the meanwhile, a concerned group comprising professional surveyors and urban development consultants proposed a new plan called Project City E to reclaim parts of the old Kai Tak Airport area. The group claimed it would provide about 85 hectares of land in the shortest time without any ecological damage to Victoria Harbour. Haley Zhou, TVB News.
Overseas again, a top amateur golfer from Spain was murdered yesterday while golfing alone at Iowa State University. The suspect, a 22-year-old homeless man, was ordered held on $5 million bail by an Iowa court. Jeff Tang reports.
Police in the city of Ames were called to the Coldwater Golf Links to investigate a possible missing woman after other golfers found a golf bag with no one around it. Barquin's body was located in the nearby pond shortly afterwards with stab wounds to her upper torso, head and neck. Police confirmed she had been golfing alone at the time. The suspect was identified as Colin Daniel Richards, a 22-year-old homeless man living in a tent near the golf course.
During a search of the wooded area next to the golf course, officers located a subject who spoke of another individual living in the wooded area who had made statements about having an urge to rape and kill women.
Barquin's shocking death was mourned by family and friends in her home village of Puente San Miguel in northern Spain. It was the second fatal stabbing of a female student in Iowa in recent months. A Mexico immigrant is charged in the July 18th kidnapping and stabbing of University of Iowa student Molly Tibbetts, who vanished while out for a run in the small town of Brooklyn. Jeff Tang, TVB News.
And that's an